Ladies and gentlemen, ever since The Outer Worlds had been unveiled at the Xbox E3 press conference, I've been chomping at the bit for this game to finally come out. What seems like a bombardment over the last few years of just generic, open-world, live service AAA games with microtransactions crammed into every orifice that they can fit it in, it is truly a breath of fresh air whenever a game like this comes out. Just a strict, no-nonsense single-player experience, and yeah, I'm going to savor every moment that I can of this game. But as I'm sure most of you are aware of, The Outer Worlds came out this Friday, and I've put in about 15 to 20 hours of gameplay in so far. And yeah, I'm going to just give you my general first impressions of my experiences. No need to worry about spoilers. I'm not going to be spoiling any kind of main story or anything like that. This is, again, just my general first impressions, but if a more in-depth, spoiler-heavy analysis does sound like something interesting to you, let me know in the comments down below, leave a like, and subscribe to stay updated on all future content. With all that stuff out of the way, let's get started. Oh, banana. So, I absolutely love this game. Yeah, if you're looking for a TLDR of this video, this is it. I love this game. The first 15 hours of this have been nothing but a joyous experience, and you owe it to yourself to play this game. If you're wondering, should I buy this game? Absolutely you should. It's definitely worth the full $60 retail price, whether it's on PS4, Game Pass, buying it through the Epic Store, whatever. You owe it to yourself to play this game. And I definitely recommend it with the experience that I've had so far. Yeah, the game basically starts with you being this kind of, I guess, colonizer person. You're just basically this person cryogenically frozen with a bunch of other people on this colony ship heading towards this planet. And your ship is kind of just stuck, suspending out into space because the board decided it so. For whatever reason, they didn't want you to land. It affected their bottom line. And so, yeah, they just kind of kept you drifting asleep in space. Your character is then rescued by this scientist, activist dude, Phineas Wells. And he's wanted for crimes against the board, which is like the big organization, the kind of the governing body of the system. He shoots your pod down, and your job is to basically find this one ship, get it airborne, save the rest of your fellow colonizers. Right off the bat, this game, the writing is just spectacular. Each of the characters you meet are great. Phineas is quite funny. He's very quirky, but he's super radical. He's kind of like the at least off the bat, he kind of has that eat the rich mentality, and it's really cool to get that perspective from him. And then as you're playing throughout the game, you meet other people who maybe are just kind of acclimated to the system, or are very much in support of the board and the life that they provide, because that's what they know, and what the life that they have may be pretty good, so why question it? There's a lot of different interesting takes on it, and the characters all seem to have their own varying opinions and stances, and they're not just kind of one-note characters. Not to really spoil anything, I'll just be focusing on one of the NPCs in particular. There's this basic mechanic in the game where you, as you're playing through the quest, or as you're playing through the main story, you basically get this ship and you can acquire crew members. One of the first people that you can recruit on your ship is a woman named Parvati. She's a companion that you get like really early on in the game, and she's a pretty complex character, you know. And as I'm a person who really likes to focus on the main story of a game, and pretty much whenever she has her own companion quest stuff come up, I like drop everything I'm doing to just to help her out, because that's all I want to do, is just want to help her out. And it's this adorable, like I don't use this word like ever, but her character is adorable. She's like this, she's almost like a sister. At least that's kind of how it is portrayed to me. That's kind of how I sort of taken it. And she meets this one mechanic lady that you guys kind of run into on another area, and she starts to confide in you that she's like, I really think this person's attractive. I don't know these feelings that I have. I've never really felt them before. And then she confides in you that she's not a very romantic physical person. And so she doesn't know how to react, and she's like super confused if she should kind of pursue a relationship or if she's thinking things or whatever. And it's this whole quest line of this kind of simple thing, but it's in a weird, almost a family dynamic, how she confides in you, and you're captain, and you're kind of this older brother. At least for me, you're like this older brother or older sibling figure. And it's just great. It's one of those quests that really just makes you care about the character, and for that reason, it just makes the role-playing experience that much better. Another example, a character you can recruit pretty early on is a guy named Felix. He just kind of has no direction in life, and he's kind of a ruffian. He's kind of a troublemaker, and he says he's got nowhere else to go really, and that your crew is kind of his ticket out of there to have some purpose and excitement in his life. And so I took him on, and yeah, the writing and the characters are probably the biggest highlight of the game. Continuing on the writing thing, Obsidian is the studio that made Fallout New Vegas, and the majority of the people in Obsidian are the people who also worked on the original first and second Fallout, and so they are no strangers to like that offbeat humor, that dark humor that you would often find in those games. And it really makes me think of like Borderlands 3, because Borderlands 3, although it's a good game in its own right, the writing is just so kind of on the nose, in your face, to where it's kind of annoying with the characters. And this is a perfect example on how to do the humor right, because it balances the seriousness with the dark humor and just with the silly characters. It kind of walks this wonderful line of kind of handling these things when they need to be handled. And yeah, it's such a every time I sit down and play, I'm laughing at least 2 or 3 times during each session, just because of the silliness of the dialogue. And it's this capitalist dystopia, and without getting political, it is definitely in some ways kind of a reflection on our current society, and so there's a lot of humor in that, and kind of reflection back at us. It's super smart and well written, just super entertaining. The combat is good. Honestly, it's kind of my bigger gripe, I guess. I guess the bad of it is it's more of a nitpick, really. It feels kind of like just a slightly updated Fallout New Vegas combat system. In the Outer Worlds, the shooting was good enough. It was fine. I feel like it could have been better. The slowdown mechanic that it has is really good. And as far as combat mechanics go, I love the companion special moves. Each companion that you have has its own unique a move that once its meter is fully charged, camera will kind of cut to a cinematic shot of them doing that attack, and those attacks usually do the most damage or have like some sort of special effect on whatever they're attacking. So like Felix, for example, will do like a flying drop kick and often like stagger or stun the enemy. You got a character who just unloads with her minigun. Sound design, the music, the voice acting's all great. Nothing to complain about there. The graphics are fine. There are games out there right now that are a bit prettier, but this totally does the job. I've always been a gameplay over graphics kind of guy myself. For me, I've had quite a bit of extra pop-in issues. Now, my computer isn't the newest machine, but it is above the minimum specs that the game is requiring, and so even after playing around with the settings, it seems to be kind of unavoidable. There is just some texture pop-ins, and I've noticed this is the case too with people on console as well. Not a huge deal breaker because it doesn't happen too often. One of the biggest things with RPGs is how they handle their stat system. And this is probably one of the bigger highlights that I didn't think would impress me as much. So if you're familiar with like Fallout, you have the skill points traditionally. And basically what happens is every time you level up, you invest in the main skill set. So for example, if I wanted to specialize in range, right? After I get my skill points for leveling up, I can invest in the ranged weapons category, and that will increase my skill set in all ranged weapons. And once you hit level 50 in a certain skill, then you have to spend individual skill points. So for example, going back to the ranged weapon thing, if all of my ranged weapons hit 50, now in order to improve in the ranged weapons, I have to individually select either handguns or long guns or heavy guns, that sort of thing, which really makes sense in a role-playing situation, because if you're trying to get better at melee weapons, for example, right? Overall, if you start from the bottom, you kind of gain an overall knowledge of all things in that category, but in order to master something, then you have to focus on the specific skills. And I think it's a genius way to do it. It doesn't punish somebody for trying to learn something later on in the game. A great system, really. So that was my general first impressions of The Outer Worlds, and yeah, I'm having a blast with this game. I'm having so much fun, and quite honestly, I just can't wait to see what else I do and experience within my first full playthrough of the game. Like I said before, these single-player games just kind of seem to be happening less and less. So I'm definitely going to be thoroughly playing through this game and trying to get as much out of it as I can possibly get. That about does it for this one. Thank you so much for watching the video and checking out the channel. If you have bought The Outer Worlds for yourself, let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts and experiences are on the game so far. It was one of my most anticipated games for 2019, honestly. And yeah, I will definitely be getting this for the Switch when it eventually comes out. I just can't pass up the opportunity to play this on handheld either. Yeah, that's enough out of me. Thanks again for watching, and for all things tech, games, and other nerdy things in between, be sure to subscribe to Digital Cynic. Have a good one.